This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's the news with Matt Miller.
Welcome to your bite-sized take on the latest science fiction production news. I'm Matt Miller at Trek Zone HQ. Jonathan Frakes recently sat down with Trek Movie to discuss upcoming work, including Discovery's third season. He also dove into short treks, joking that he felt left out by not being invited to participate in them. He commented that his crazy idea to pitch would be a musical number and noted that the dancing in Calypso was magical. Frakes was asked about Section 31, to which he replied that Strange New Worlds made more sense to do first at a network level, but that there was definitely movement on it. Meanwhile, in the Kelvinverse, Zachary Quinto spoke to the ladies on The Talk Tuesday for his Netflix movie The Boys in the Band, but Trek was on their minds too. He commented that the cast are ready to return, but he appears to be in the dark about the master plan at Paramount, noting that it seems like a bit of a saturated market, but they are ready to be beamed aboard once again when called. Over in the UK, destination Star Trek London has been pushed back to 2021. It's one of the last remaining physical cons to be postponed this year. Organiser Massive Events has stated their planned 25th Voyager anniversary celebration will still go ahead next year, and tickets purchased for this year will be honoured next year. In the US, STLV is still trying to push ahead for December 9 to 13. Creation Entertainment's last in-person event was in March, and the Trek Con is the last on their books for this year. Returning to Trek movie news, Noah Hawley on the publicity circuit for his new season of Fargo continues to drop hints about his Star Trek movie, which was forced to hit the pause button after Paramount brought in a new person to run motion pictures. These hints continue to define his version to that of the Kelvinverse. In comments, he's said that Trek is not a war story. It's about creative problem solving, about exploration. Hawley also said of the Chris Pine-helmed trio of movies that they were mostly about running from one end of the ship to the other. They're more action movies. We'll hear at Trek Zone, Lee Sargent zoomed back in for another chat about Star Trek Lower Decks. His thoughts have been renewed, have been reinvigorated. Some of the problems that he had with the show were addressed in preceding episodes from our original chat. You can catch that in episode number 464. Glenn Dakin's Star Trek Nerd Search is coming up in episode 467. That's a really cool new book from the British author. And coming up in episode 472, we're going to dive into Aussie rocket launches with a new startup company called Southern Launch. They're based down in South Australia, and they have access to polar orbits, which is something really, really exciting. As like I said, that one's coming up in episode 472. Well, don't forget to like, follow and subscribe to Trek Zone all over social media. On YouTube, give us a thumbs up if you like this video. If not, well, I guess the other button seems to work just as well. On Facebook Watch, leave a react, leave a comment. Love to hear from you. Leave a comment on YouTube as well. Love to engage with the audience. What more news do you want to hear? What news do you want to hear less of? Looking for all that sort of feedback here on this brand new bite-sized podcast called The News from Trek Zone. For now though, I'm Matt Miller. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you again real soon.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's the news with Matt Miller.
Welcome to the news. Let's get straight into it. The virtual New York Comic-Con panel for Star Trek Prodigy has been held overnight, and we have confirmation of the series lead for the show, which will be targeting 5 to 15-year-olds. Kate Mulgrew is back, interestingly titled Captain Janeway, but this could be based off her longest-serving role, given the level of in-depth knowledge the creative team behind the latest Trek series have. Mulgrew said that she was initially hesitant to reprise the role, but afforded the opportunity for an animated series appealed to her, given that she can jump into a recording booth instead of having to suit up once again. Meanwhile, Kate, Patrick Stewart, George Takei and more have been tapped for a Star Trek-themed event for presidential candidate Joe Biden on October 13. The event, dubbed Trek the Vote to Victory, will feature George Takei, Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, Brett Spiner, Gates McFadden, LeVar Burton, Marina Sirtis, Will Wheaton, Kate Mulgrew, Jerry Ryan, Sonequa Martin Green, Anthony Rapp, Wilson Cruz, Alison Pill, Evan Evagoria, Isa Briones, Jonathan Del Arco, Santiago Cabrera, and Michelle Hurd. Lower Decks has wrapped its first season in North America with an amazing climax. It'll be well worth another watch when international audiences are legitimately allowed to watch the series. And CBS All Access viewers were treated to a tease of next week's Discovery return. We'll have HD screen caps and reviews kicking off from next Saturday, and I'll also be catching up with Picard and the short treks as well. Anything else that I've missed. Here at Trek Zone, Glenn Dakin swung by on Monday for a chat about his Star Trek Nerd Search. That's EP 467. And coming up on EP 472, we're diving into Aussie rocket launches with launch director Alex Lenocia from Southern Launch Australia. Plus on EP 477, Doug Drexler's back, and we're diving into Mark Cushman's awesome books. These are the Voyages, chronicling the beginning of the Star Trek franchise. Trek Zone Players continues. EPs 10 and 11 are out now, and of course talking science this week, focusing on the space station once again, with some other news mixed in there as well. Don't forget to like, follow and subscribe to Trek Zone all over social media. Never miss a moment. Ring the notification bell on YouTube and Facebook Watch. If you've made it this far, give us a like and leave a comment. Love to hear from you. For now though, I'm Matt Miller at Trek Zone HQ. That's the news. We'll catch you real soon.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's the news with Matt Miller.
Matt Miller with you at Trek Zone HQ. Let's dive straight in and making news this week. Network 10 has confirmed 10 All Access will be the home for CBS, Paramount, Nickelodeon, MTV and Comedy Central premium content from next year as it rebrands to Paramount Plus in line with the US brand's relaunch. Our fingers and toes are crossed for at least a Lower Decks announcement early in the new year, and even better would be one home for all of Star Trek worldwide. Meanwhile, current Trek maestro Alex Kurtzman has spoken with SFX magazine for their comprehensive cover story on the third Disco season, confirming the Borg are not coming and 23rd century friends are 32nd century enemies. And despite the lack of an official renewal for a fourth season, Kurtzman says that the production team will be returning, leading to CBS and Secret Hideout having 3 shows in various stages of production, 2 in Canada and 1 in Southern California. On the movie front, Kurtzman says he would love to see continuity and unification across the big and small screens, that he has his hands very full, but it would be good for Star Trek. In Las Vegas, Creation Entertainment has finally confirmed they've cancelled the rescheduled December STLV event. That makes the 2019 con, the one where we were the only podcast with press credentials, as the last officially licensed event for Creation. However, they're not done yet. The 55-year mission Las Vegas is planned to be held from August 11 to 15 next year. Keeping the convention news going, Virtual Trek Con 2 kicked off yesterday and runs until the 19th. Plenty of action to be had, and I was humbled to have been invited to host a panel representing Trek Zone, but just couldn't slot it into my workload, so a big kudos to Virtual Trek Con for thinking of me. Look out for panels with Mike McMahon and conversations about diversity in Star Trek, Disco and Deep Space Nine. Beam over to virtualtrekcon.com. And lastly, some news that dropped just after we recorded last week. The Lower Decks gang beamed into the Ready Room to chat Season 2. Creator Mike McMahon saying it'll be even bigger and funnier, but still very Trek. Boimler starts the season on the Titan, and Jonathan Frakes will be returning. Plus, in big international audience, spoiler warning, news, Shax really has died, and a new security chief will be assuming the post next season. Alrighty, just enough time to tease Doug Drexler coming up on EP 477. Our usual Talking Science and Trek Zone Plays EPs are out now for this week, and Alex Lenocia from Southern Launch Australia beamed in on Monday for a chat about the company bringing Australian rocket launches to reality. Like, follow and subscribe to Trek Zone all over social media. Activate notifications to never miss a moment, because we'll never spam you. And on Facebook Watch, react to this video, give us a thumbs up on YouTube and leave a comment. For now though, that's the news, keeping you in the loop on Trek News in a bite-sized podcast.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's the news with Matt Miller.
Welcome to the podcast. Let's dive straight in. Star Trek stamps have debuted in the United Kingdom, with the Royal Mail releasing a set for sending old-fashioned letters and parcels. Now you too can experience mail at warp speed. Meanwhile, at Virtual TrekCon 2, Mike McMahon teased the second season of Lower Decks while reflecting on the first season, noting that Trek's first foray into adult animation looked to bend the Star Trek rules rather than breaking them, while still being able to put his own mark on the franchise. McMahon also spoke of the many references peppered throughout the episodes, saying that the Lower Deckers would have been learning about these prior missions and reading the logs at the Academy. The writing staff are also looking for ways to go beyond TNG next season, so there's no slowing down the latest animated series to our franchise. You can catch the full panel over at virtualtrekcon.com. In a new interview, IndieWire spoke with Alex Kurtzman, who alluded to new technology for Discovery Season 4. Yes, it's happening. No, don't listen to the gatekeepers because they're wrong again. Oh, and Alex Kurtzman's still there as well. It does seem like Trek may be taking a leaf from the Mandalorian's playbook, bringing in a massive augmented reality wall to replace the need to shoot on location in these COVID times. Kurtzman also noted that filming for the fourth season kicks off on November 2nd, with the entire cast currently in quarantine. With 10 days between the end of Season 3 production and the Hollywood shutdown, post-work was done remotely, and the biggest hurdle there was pickup shots. The cast had to perform their own motion capture from home to get the work done. Here at Trek Zone, the Gremlins attacked our recording with Doug Drexler, which was supposed to be EP 477. It's the second time the Gremlins have attacked, and the second time they've gone after Doug. I'll be having a word to them a little later. Thankfully, Doug's agreed to come back. He's going to join me on EP 484 for a chat about These Are the Voyages, Mark Cushman's books that I've been meaning to review for quite some time since he sent them over to me. Before that, though, some massive Axonar news. Carlos Pedraza from Axon Monitor will be joining me to bring us up to speed in EP 478. The massive Axonar news isn't good if you're a fan of that long-promised production. Huge things to come on that front. And like I said, Carlos will be joining us on the next Trek Zone conversation, which is EP 478. For now, though, like, follow, and subscribe to Trek Zone across social media, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Ring the notification bells across each of those platforms to never miss a moment. Get an alert when we're posting stuff. And I'll catch you again on another edition of the news real soon.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's the news with Matt Miller.
Welcome. Let's dive straight in. Well, Hallmark have continued their Christmas tradition, going for the 29th year, releasing ornaments for your Christmas tree. Featuring an awesome original Enterprise tree topper and 3 characters. Isn't it time you Trekified your Christmas? Meanwhile, Hero Collector have released 2 new books, and details of a third. Mr. Spock's Little Book of Mindfulness offers relatable wisdom and timely insights about modern life from the venerable science officer. And while you're contemplating those pearls, you'll be wanting to learn the recipes for cocktails from the 23rd and 24th centuries. Glenn Dakin penned this masterful collection of creative drink recipes. Plus, on November 10, we're getting Voyager, a celebration, the ultimate book celebrating the series' 25th anniversary this year. The 247 pages include behind-the-scenes exposés, cast and crew interviews, and a whole lot more. Ben Robinson pulled together this awesome collection. Earlier in the week, a Catherine Janeway monument was unveiled in Bloomington, Indiana, the future birthplace of the Voyager captain. Kate Mulgrew attended the event virtually, answering some questions about her future role in Prodigy while looking back on Voyager. She noted that the negotiations for her to join Prodigy took a long time. She initially thought the role would be live action, something she's reticent to return to, but voicing the animated Janeway was appealing and would broaden the reach of Trek to young people and their parental figures. Details of the next Picard tie-in novel have been announced. Captain Riker and his family on the Titan will be the centre of attention for The Dark Veil from James Swallow. Set for release in January 2021, the book will be set a year after after Picard's resignation from Starfleet. Here at Trek Zone, my chat with Doug Drexler has been bumped for another week to fit in a second part with Carlos Pedraza, because there's just so much Axanar news to cover that we just need that extra time. So Carlos' second part is Ep 484, but never fear, Doug will be back on the next Trek Zone conversation, which, if you're playing along in real time, is released a week later, and it'll be Ep 489. We've got the uncut edition of my playthrough of Star Trek Away Team coming in at 486. Then I'm diving straight into the next generations of Final Unity, that awesome story-driven game, if I can get a DOS box loaded somewhere. Plus, Lee Sargent is coming back for another Talk and Trek. Disco's third season will be our topic, the awesome third season that is currently underway right now on CBS All Access in the States, Netflix everywhere else, and of course on Canadian television as well. So you're going to want to get subscribed to Trek Zone and ring the notification bell to never miss a moment of Trek Zone podcasting action.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's the news with Matt Miller.
Welcome to this Discovery special of Trek Zone's The News. Let's dive straight in. Disco's senior staff have spoken with Star Trek magazine as Season 3 continues. Emily Kurtz noting that Detmer is shocked with the sudden change of time and place, something we're seeing her character explore in the early episodes. Patrick Kwok-Chun noted that the crew only have each other after the jump 900 years into the future. Nothing's the same, and everyone you loved and cared about are long dead. Number 77 is available now for US and UK residents. Now, I'm going to check in with some theories thanks to an article on trekmovie.com. Theory the first: Control has sought refuge in Detmer's implant, with some official publicity for the show focusing on the character, and the question, is more going on? As well as her behaviour either being of someone who is struggling for control or having suffered from a recent traumatic event. Well, I'm with Trek Movie on this one. We think that the whole reason for jumping 900 years in the future was to break free of the 23rd century shackles. That means that everything should have been left behind. Theory the second: the burn was either caused by Michael Burnham or her mother through the use of the Red Angel time suit, or another party spurred on by their actions. And the evidence supporting that is that the burn is a derivative of the character's last name. And again, I'm with Trek Movie. This would not be a good resolution to Season 3's central storyline. Quite frankly, it's boring. But also having Burnham as the centre of galactic importance for a third season in a row would just be lazy story writing. But what do you think? What is the burn? What caused it? What's happening in Discovery Season 3? And also, what's up with Detmer? Leave a comment and let's have a chat about what's going on. Meanwhile, production on Season 4 has gotten underway this week, with Michelle Paradise tweeting her admiration for the working from home writer's room, as well as the production staff. Doug Jones posted a selfie too, noting he voluntarily goes completely bald to save the time of applying a bald cap before donning the Saru makeup. And once you're all caught up with Season 3 of Discovery, clear some time for the autobiography of Catherine Janeway. Una McCormick's penned this incredible exploration of Voyager's captain, including an introduction by a commander, Naomi Wildman. It's a complete telling of the life of Janeway and is a must-read. And of course, if you can't wait, it is available now in all good bookstores in hardcover and ebook form. Here at Trek Zone, our two-part Axanar special is live. Carlos Pedraza breaking down the nefarious Star Trek fan film that still hasn't filmed a frame of the final two shorts. Although, to muddy the waters, after we recorded, they released another trailer. Yes, another trailer. But there wasn't anything new in that. It was just a compilation of old footage. Doug Drexler is here on Monday, Ep 488, to chat about Mark Cushman's books, These Are the Voyagers. And Lee Sargent, although he doesn't know it yet, will be back to chat about Season 3 as it stands from where we're recording. I'm hoping to do that in a couple of weeks. And just before I go, we're gathering steam on a massive relaunch of Trek Zone in 2021. There'll be a few exciting things to come from Australia's unofficial home of Star Trek in the new year, so be on the lookout for those. More teasing to come. I kick off my playthrough of Star Trek The Next Generation's Final Unity in Ep 490. For now, though, like, follow and subscribe to Trek Zone across social media. Turn on notifications to get the latest eps straight to your feed, and I'll see you next week for another edition of Trek Zone's The News.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's The News with Matt Miller.
Welcome. Let's dive straight in. Viacom CBS CEO Bob Bakish revealed in an investors conference call last Friday, Star Trek is fueling growth quarter on quarter for the streaming services of the Eye. They include CBS All Access, Showtime, and Pluto. The big buzz is around the rebrand of All Access to Paramount Plus, which includes a relaunch here in Australia, as well as launches in Nordic countries and Latin America. The Eye has its sights set on global playback from its streaming service, and this is exciting news. Responding to a question, Bakish confirmed that Star Trek is an important part of their streaming strategy, which leads me to suspect a push to bring Trek home, especially here in Australia, potentially in the UK as well, where Viacom CBS have strong broadcasting assets, but not the streaming to back them up, which would lend itself to my theory about Lower Decks, which has been waiting for the rebrand. Further cementing these thoughts is the appearance of the Star Trek universe on the cover of the earnings report. Meanwhile, in Boston, a planned memorial for Leonard Nimoy has the backing of the late Spock actor's family. It comes just a few weeks after Captain Janeway was immortalised. Nimoy would be honoured with his iconic Vulcan salute and live long and prosper. Boston, of course, was the childhood home of Leonard Nimoy before he moved to California to pursue acting. Huge Orville news. After several months of furlough, the production team is returning to the sound stages to continue making the third season of the hit Seth MacFarlane show. Co-producer Tom Costantino telling Trek Zone that some post-work has continued during the forced hiatus due to COVID-19. I'm hoping Tom will join me for a Trek Zone conversation in a few weeks once they get production rolling and the dailies start coming in. Here at Trek Zone, Lee Sargent will return in Ep 493. We'll be chatting Discovery's third season up to Ep 5. My Talkin' Trek co-host will beam in for that chat on Monday. So it'll be minty fresh for our release on Monday at 6:30pm Australian Eastern Standard Time. Elsewhere in the schedule, there is just 5 weeks left in our production year, but I'll be getting through the meat of a Final Unity, continue talking science with Dr. Brad, and bringing you the news each Friday, exactly as I'm doing right now. Then the New Look Trek Zone kicks off January 1. It's an ambitious plan to take you non-stop all the way through to Christmas 2021. It's only about 90 more episodes than I produced this year, so it's certainly achievable. We'll see how much more hair I lose towards the end of next year. Hopefully there's no giant global pandemic. But for now, you can like, follow, and subscribe to Trek Zone all over social media to help me feel really warm and fuzzy on the inside. I'm struggling to get past 1,672 followers on Twitter, so if you could spare a follow on Twitter, that'd be absolutely fantastic. Let's get to 1,700 before Christmas. And don't forget to activate notifications. Ring the bell on YouTube, activate notifications on Facebook and Twitter. We're never going to spam you. We're just going to bring you some fantastic content. 5 episodes a week, kicking it up to 7 in 2021.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's The News with Matt Miller.
Welcome. Let's dive straight in. A series of William Shatner docos produced throughout the last 10 years have been wrapped up just in time for the holidays into a neat little Blu-ray box set. The Captains, which headlines Disc 1, and as the name implies, it's Shatner catching up with all his fellow Star Trek captains. Its follow-up, The Captain's Close-Up, leads Disc 2. Chaos on the Bridge with DC Fontana, Rick Berman, and others on the early years of Next Gen is on Disc 3. Now, I probed into the early years of Next Gen with Melinda Snodgrass back in February, so check that one out. Click the card to beam straight over to that one. Get a Life takes Disc 4 and is Shatner's love letter to Star Trek fans. And a bonus doco, Still Kicking, follows Shatner as he returns to the Stratford Shakespeare Festival in Ontario. The 5-disc special edition includes a swag of bonuses too, but it does come with a premium price tag, almost double the 4-disc version. IDW Publishing has released its first part of Seven's Reckoning, set between the 4th season's Scientific Method and Year of Hell. The comic from Dave Barker, with art by Angel Hernandez, is the first ever Voyager miniseries and comes just in the nick of time before Voyager's 25th anniversary year wraps up. Big news for Strange New Worlds lead actor Anson Mount. He's joined the board of directors for Messaging Extraterrestrial Intelligence, the scientific organisation founded in 2015 and devoted to finding ET and having a chat with them. Meanwhile, LeVar Burton has been tapped by fans to replace the late, great Alex Trebek on Jeopardy, the long-running quiz show which debuted in 1984. Burton said in a tweet he appreciated all the love and support, but he's not sure if anything will come of it. Here at Trek Zone, Lee Sargent is definitely beaming in for the next Trek Zone conversation following Larry Nemenchek's surprise and welcome guest spot this week. It's turned into a 2-part look at the Discovery season so far, not including this week's 6th instalment. A final Unity continues. Behind the scenes, I've almost wrapped the game. And it'll play out through until the end of our production year. We've still got 4 more Talkin' Science shows this year, with planning for our coverage of the Hayabusa 2 return to Woomera in South Australia. Kicking up a gear, we'll be chatting with OSIRIS-REx project scientist Jason DeWalken in a couple of weeks, and we'll have special coverage of the return, currently slated for December 6. Plus, starting New Year's Day, we're planning on going non-stop for 50 weeks, 7 days a week. It's a huge undertaking, but when you think about it, I've been doing about 5 shows a week for most of this year. So be sure to like, follow and subscribe to Trek Zone all over social media. Ring the notification bell, activate notifications on Facebook and Twitter, because all I'm going to do is be tweeting and posting the latest episodes. There's so much content to get through. You're not going to want to miss a moment. Let it drop straight into your inbox, and then you can come along for the journey with me. For now though, I'm Matt Miller at Trek Zone HQ. Thanks so much for watching this edition of Trek Zone's The News.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's The News with Matt Miller.
Welcome as the festive season begins here on Trek Zone. We've got 3 more weeks left in our production year. Let's dive straight in. The father of Star Trek has died. Herb Solow started in the mailroom of the William Morris Agency before rising through the ranks at CBS and then Desilu Studios, where he became Vice President of Production. Solow signed Gene Roddenberry to a development deal in 1964 and worked to get the wagon train to the stars sold to NBC. Herb passed away at the age of 89 from natural causes. Aussie Evan Evagora has confirmed with the Pod Syndicate that Season 2 of Picard will enter production in January. The Elnor actor shared some thoughts of guest stars he'd like to see, including Sir Ian McKellen, LeVar Burton, and even Michael Dorn. Of the latter, Evagora said he'd love to see Elnor spar with Worf. We do know that Burton has been in talks with producers, and Sir Patrick Stewart has said he'd like to see more of his TNG co-stars in Picard. Last week, I confirmed Seven's Reckoning coming in the new year, but now we have details of 2 new comics coming as well, including Star Trek Year 5 by Brandon Easton, which will see one of the original Enterprise crew pulled into a violent past as Spock vanishes on Vulcan. While Star Trek The Next Generation, The Gift Annual, written by John Delancey, sees an all-new reprint of the TNG story Tapestry, Q giving Picard the chance to go back and change one of his biggest mistakes. The comics are slated for release in February next year. Meanwhile, the Delta Flyers podcast with Garrett Wang and Robert Duncan McNeil has reached the Season 2 stinker threshold as they continue to podcast each episode in a weekly format. This time around, for their patrons, Kate Mulgrew dropped by to talk about the episode, often dubbed the worst of the franchise. McNeil remembering that as the makeup and prosthetics got heavier through the episode, his anxiety grew to the point where he was even taken to hospital. Through it all, the Voyager actors drew some positives, especially in terms of character development. Doctor Who is back for Christmas, and she's not alone. Jack's back Captain Jack Harkness is one of the most iconic characters in the Who-niverse, and he'll star in the forthcoming festive episode Revolution of the Daleks, where our trio will learn of a disturbing plan involving the Daleks. Here at Trek Zone, we're well underway with preparations to bring you Hayabusa 2 coverage. The Japanese spacecraft has valuable samples of asteroid Ryugu in its possession, and it'll be dropping them off in the South Australian outback next Sunday, December 6th. We've got expert analysis lined up in a fun 90-minute live stream from 2:50 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And Hayabusa 2 coverage will take up much of our last 3 weeks on the air, but I will have time to chat with Tom Costantino about the Orville returning to production on their 3rd season, which was interrupted by the pandemic. And lastly, I want to remind you of what's to come here on Australia's unofficial home of Star Trek in 2021. We're certainly going to be more than Trek as we move to 7 days a week of programming with 5 shows. That time when on Sundays and Saturdays we'll take you back to the podcasts gone by, reminding you in a bite-sized podcast of what we've done and giving you the links to catch that show in full. We'll wrap up a final Unity before Christmas, then Trek Zone Plays moves to Mondays and Thursdays, continuing to bring you 100% retro gameplay with no commentary. We've got 2 more eps of Talkin' Science as well as our live stream for this year. Then it returns on Tuesday, January 5. Trek Zone Conversation moves to Wednesdays in 2021, and we'll continue to bring you the long-form interviews and detailed analysis of our favourite franchises. Trek Zone's The News will be back on Fridays, keeping you in the loop with all the latest production news. Subscribe and activate notifications to never miss a moment, and I'll catch you with more news next week.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's The News with Matt Miller.
Welcome. It's Friday, the 4th of December 2020. Let's dive straight in. And we have confirmation of the Doctor's return. And it's going to be a New Year affair with Captain Jack, Yaz, Ryan and Graham attempting to figure out what the Daleks are up to while the Doctor remains in an alien prison. The New Year's special will air on January the 2nd on ABC here in Australia, reversing their decision last season to wait a week before broadcast. And I'll reach out to resident Whovian Rob McKnight for his hot take on the New Year's episode in a special edition of a Trek Zone Conversation at the start of January. Now, issue 78 of the Star Trek magazine is out, and it's a Starship special packed with fantastic features and interviews. They'll have a complete guide to Starfleet starships, class by class, telling the incredible story of documenting the Enterprise, and a technology look at the habitability in both Starfleet and real-world spacecraft. Plus, the official magazine releasing in the UK has interviews with Doug Jones and David Ayala. They'll be diving into Season 3 of Discovery. Now, a few months ago, it was revealed that a Star Trek movie with Noah Hawley at the helm was put on the back burner. The Fargo producer and writer spoke to Deadline earlier this week, chatting briefly about the next project, saying that when Emma Watts assumed the helm at Paramount, she decided to take Trek in a different direction. This isn't new news, however, with the first reports of Watts' desire to change Trek back in August. And since then, Hawley had noted that his film would have brought in new characters and less of an action focus. He did note to Deadline, though, that Paramount seems to want to make Trek a tentpole success in a similar vein to Transformers and Mission Impossible. Meanwhile, we have big convention news for 2021 from Creation Entertainment, the Sci-Fi Summits, which will include the Vegas-held 55-year mission tour, will be joined by events in Vancouver, New Jersey and Florida in July and September next year, all focusing on Trek. William Shatner will headline the events with Discovery, Picard, TNG, Voyager and DS9 cast also invited. They'll include Anthony Rapp, Casey Biggs, Ethan Phillips, Jerry Ryan, Vaughn Armstrong, Terry Farrell and Mary Wiseman, plus many, many more. In fact, over 85 actors and production staff have been invited to the Sci-Fi Summits, kicking off from July next year across the United States and Canada. Well, here at Trek Zone, I couldn't wait to show off the relaunched graphics, which were due to kick off at the start of the year. So Talking Science brought you the fresh coat of paint and has led the rest of the series as well. Trek Zone Plays, and now the news as well with these great new graphics at the bottom of the screen. And just before we go, I want to remind you of what's to come from Australia's unofficial home of Star Trek in 2021. We're definitely going to be more than Trek with our huge change, 7 days a week of podcasting with 5 shows. That time when, on Sundays and Saturdays, we'll take you back to the podcasts gone by, reminding you in a bite-sized podcast of what we've done and giving you the links to catch the show in full. Trek Zone Plays moves to Mondays and Thursdays, continuing to bring you 100% retro gameplay with no commentary. Talking Science returns on Tuesday, January 5, with Dr. Brad Tucker and I discussing the latest science and space news headlines in a light and fun 30-minute podcast. Trek Zone Conversation moves to Wednesdays, and we'll continue to bring you the long-form interviews and detailed analysis of our favourite franchises. Trek Zone's The News is back on Fridays, keeping you in the loop with the latest production news exactly as we're doing now. So don't miss a moment. Subscribe, ring the bell, activate notifications, do all that good stuff so that I can send you reminders when I upload episodes, so you're never going to want to miss a moment of Trek Zone in 2021. 350 podcasts is the aim across the year. Let's see how we go. But for now, I'm Matt Miller at Trek Zone HQ. Thanks very much for your company. We've still got 2 more weeks of Trek Zone podcasting in 2020. So don't go anywhere. And also, don't go anywhere for our 2:50 a.m. live stream for the Hayabusa 2 return on Sunday. Or if you're watching this past Sunday, the 6th of December, click the link in the card. I think it's up here somewhere to go over to our live stream and catch our expert analysis and commentary of the Japanese spacecraft returning.
This is our bite-sized podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in science fiction. It's The News with Matt Miller.
Welcome. It's Friday, the 11th of December, 2020, our very last show for the year. Let's dive straight in. General Chuck Yeager has passed away. The US Air Force test pilot was the first person to break the sound barrier in 1947, but his distinguished career saw him fly above the Western Front in a P-51 Mustang. He also commanded forces during the Vietnam War and retired in 1975, having earned the rank of Brigadier General. Yeager was 97. The Orville is back in production following a COVID-19 enforced hiatus. The Seth MacFarlane-helmed homage to Star Trek The Next Generation called its cast and crew back to work on the 5th of December after a lengthy shuttering of the studio doors to try and mitigate the pandemic spread. Producer Tom Costantino telling Trek Zone that everyone's working as best they can with the new normal that COVID has brought. He's working from home with secure remote connections to the studio to check on shooting progress. A new Aussie sci-fi movie has premiered its full-length trailer this week. The official synopsis tells us that it's been 2 years after aliens landed on Earth, with survivors from Sydney fighting in a desperate war as the number of casualties continues to grow. It's a follow-up to Luke Sparks' 2018 thriller Occupation, and we first met Luke in 2016 at the premiere of Red Billabong. He'll be back on the show in the new year, which will coincide with the release of Occupation Rainfall on the 28th of January. Luke has agreed to let us bring you the trailer right now.
What I'm about to show you has only been known to a handful of people. Even less have ever seen this. This is Project Rainfall.
So Sydney's lost, we're surrounded, and we're suffering unsustainable casualties.
There's something else. Over the past few weeks, I've encountered sources that all speak of some event. Rainfall.
Find out what this rainfall thing is. Report back to me.
I will go too.
I've seen you fight. You're keeping something from me.
I am a soldier, Matthew. Just like you.
What are they doing? Preparing for war, eh? It's their technology integrated with ours. It's a beautiful thing.
this war long enough. I'm gonna make sure you complete your mission.
You are surrounded. You cannot win.
Oh, that's not good.
Here we go!
Now, write a story as a species. I'm with you. It's not all the times that we fall, but that we rise again. Every single time.
Incoming guidance.
What else you got? Come on, you maggots! Fall back! Call him as you see him.
Well, that looks absolutely incredible. Can't wait to chat with Luke Spark in the new year about that closer to its release date. Well, here at Trek Zone, 2020 is a wrap. We put out a massive 262 episodes on various shows, went to 5 days a week, started playing games and had some amazing guests on the show. In 2021, we're getting bigger. That time when on Sundays and Saturdays we'll take you back to the podcast gone by, reminding you in a bite-sized podcast of what we've done and giving you the links to catch that show in full. Trek Zone Plays moves to Mondays and Thursdays, continuing to bring you 100% retro gameplay with no commentary. Talking Science returns on Tuesday, Feb 2nd, with Dr. Brad Tucker and I discussing the latest science and space news headlines in a light 30-minute podcast. The Trek Zone Conversation moves to Wednesdays and will continue to bring you the long-form interviews and detailed analysis of our favourite franchises. Trek Zone's The News is back on Fridays, keeping you in the loop with the latest production news. So don't forget to subscribe and activate notifications to never miss a moment. I'm hitting the ground running from January 3 with 4 weeks of looking up previous Star Trek fan films done right guests and asking, where are they now? Plus, filling the Talkin' Science Tuesday time slot in January will be a recap on the Doctor Who New Year special, plus the Mandalorian and Discovery seasons. Calling it Talkin' Sci-Fi, it's an extension of Talkin' Trek because, well, we're doing more than Trek. So make sure you come back to Trek Zone from Jan 3. I'm going to have all of that 7 days a week, 350 podcasts in 50 weeks. It's going to be huge. I'll be here waiting for you, minus those Christmas decorations. All right, well, for those still enduring the worst pandemic in 100 years, please stay safe, mask up and stay socially distant. For those with a better person in charge of their country, enjoy the rewards for all those hard weeks in lockdown, but remember to stay socially distant. Maybe Zoom your family for Christmas or the festive season instead of flying out to see them. Stay safe, be well, and I will see you all again from January 3.